What's going on, guys? My name is Joey Speaks, and this is Everyday People, the podcast. Today we have on the show Clare Kleinedler. Hey, Claire, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
All right. So I used to work with Claire at a company called My Inks a long time ago, and that's where I met Claire, and we got to be pretty tight because I was the search marketing manager, and you were the editorial manager.
Yeah.
And it was a very small company, and we were kind of in charge of each of those very small departments, but it was, 6-7 people in the company total?
Yeah.
Cool little place to work. Different, a little bit different. We had a cool / crazy / cool boss that we'll probably talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was just a really good place to work, and the few people who did work there, I think of Tony, Joe,
Tony.
Dallas in particular, Wendy. You know, it was a cool little crew that we had. It was a good time. It was a good time.
It was a motley crew.
It was. So Claire, I know that we met working at My Inks, and so where were we what building were we at when we first started?
I think we were in Glendale. We were like in Glendale in this kind of industrial area. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think like right under a bridge or something.
Yeah. It wasn't the best place, but it was part of a bigger company then.
Right.
And so I think there was an acquisition, and so that we were in that office. I didn't have an office though. I just had like a desk.
Yeah.
You too, right?
Yeah, both of us.
I don't even remember how long we were there before we moved to downtown.
So I started there in October, and I think at the beginning of the year we were downtown. We weren't there very long at all.
It wasn't long.
Yeah.
I do remember when Woo Jin, our boss, took us to look at office space and took us to that place in downtown. It was like, pick your office. And we were like, what? We get our own office? This is amazing.
It was cool. So our boss is named Woo Jin Kim. He unfortunately has passed away.
Yeah.
He was a real good guy, kind of a crazy guy, man. And he was so into to food, and he used to wear like $2,000-$3,000 suits every day. I mean, like he was always dressed to the nines. But yeah, so he takes us downtown to this place, and I felt like we were like little kids, just being able to kind of choose what we were able to do.
Yeah, it was like playing office. Like he was, like, here's the new office space, pick whatever office you want.
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first job that I ever had where I had my own office.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I know off the train, I think I got off at 7th and Metro.
Oh, the train. That's right. Yeah. I'll never forget that time. Do you remember this?
I was going to talk about that, actually.
Okay. I took the train from Pasadena. So I took the Gold Line, and then I took the Metro for like 2 stops.
Right.
Did we take the Gold Line together or no?
Yeah, so I got on earlier.
That's right.
And you were like 2 stops after I got on, yeah.
That's right. I don't think the Metro was as in bad a shape as it is now. Like, I don't think I would take the Metro now from everything I've seen. But back then
I haven't been on it since then.
The Gold Line was fine, but Metro was a little bit shady. But anyway, I remember this one time you and I were standing on the Metro platform waiting for the subway, and Woo Jin came up and kind of slapped you on the back, and you like... You drew back and were like gonna punch him, and he was like, whoa, it's just me. And you said something like, where I come from, I feel someone like touch my back, and I'm ready. But I've never seen anybody like you. It was like an instinct. I was like, wow.
Unfortunately. Well, I mean, we're waiting for the train. Somebody,
Well, honestly, if that happened today, you probably would need to do that. Like, in the Metro, but that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So another time we were on the train, me, you, and Jackie. I'm not sure where Jackie was going. Either she was going somewhere with you, but probably. Us 3 were on the train, and there's some guy on the train, right? And he is rapping to himself, but he's making a beat by hitting himself in the chest and snapping his finger.
See, I don't remember this.
Oh my God. And so he was kind of off to himself. And so let's say you and I are sitting here, and he was, maybe a couple seats down here. and he's rapping and he's making this beat and it's a whole thing. And I was like, okay. And I started talking to him. and you looked at me like, oh my God.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Oh, it was so awesome. It ended up being, it was pretty cool, but the guy was awesome. It was so funny. Oh, I can't believe you don't remember that. That was so funny.
I don't remember that.
I remember like it was yesterday.
But yeah, that was an adventurous time. That was like the only time in all the years I lived in LA that I lived and worked in locations that allowed me to take public transportation, like if effectively, efficiently, whatever. So it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. That was the first and only time I had ever taken the train. And I had I used to park over there by Hastings Ranch, and it took me maybe 5-7 minutes to get from my house to the train station. And it was the second that you got on the train, you knew exactly what time you were going to be to your destination. Got off on the goal line, or got on the goal line, got off Union Station, took the red line to 7th and Metro. It was right there. Like it was just like, it was perfect.
People don't believe that we have public transportation in LA, but
Yeah.
we do, and for some people it works.
Oh yeah. And there was a 24-hour fitness right across the street from the office. And there was a little coffee shop right there when you go up the elevator. It was just like, perfectly
nice.
Convenient.
Yeah.
You know, like for stuff like that. Yeah.
It was nice.
It was cool. So working at My Inks, like we talked about, Woojin. So Woojin was the company that owned My Inks called KOA Campgrounds?
They owned KOA Campgrounds as well.
There was a bigger company.
But there was a bigger company. I can't remember the name now. It was like, it had the word jet or inkjet or something in the title, but it was weird because they own a bunch of different inkjet cartridge companies, and then they also owned KOA Campgrounds, which was like the only thing in their portfolio that wasn't like office supplies or inkjets, which was kind of weird. So we were still part of that company, but we were like our own division, and Woojin was like, it was a bit like Lord of the Flies, where like we just kind of did whatever. I felt like I didn't actually do that much work the whole time that I worked in that downtown office. It was like, well, it's true. I mean, I went to an office every day, but
it was a startup. Like it was a startup like to the max. Like where I felt like we were really kind of just throwing stuff at the wall to see what would stick, and and the ink category is so competitive. Yeah. And we were not. My Inks was not a big guy, even though we were spending money like we were. But it was definitely it was a different place to work, but it was really cool.
It sounds so analog now, like inkjet cartridges for printers. And I used to do this newsletter to our customers. I remember a character. Like, I can't even remember the character's name now. It was like, I think it was a man.
Really?
Yeah, and it was, I don't know, let's say his name is Bob or whatever. But like Bob had this whole persona that existed before I took the job. Okay. And so then I took over, and it was just such an old, like, in retrospect, such an old-fashioned kind of like, weekly newsletter, like, hey, this is Bob. I went fishing yesterday and I did this and this. And let me tell you about the latest deals on inkjet printers or whatever. It was the inkjet cartridges.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was pretty funny.
So Woojin was such a cool guy to work for because this guy was into food. Like, so he maybe I wouldn't say once a week, but it was often. Let's say twice a month, just to, So he would take me sometime by myself. He would take Claire by herself. Sometime he would take both of us. And he would take us to these restaurants. I mean, just like these top of the line restaurants. And like, he'd say, get whatever you want. And then he would have all these suggestions. You should do this. And what was that one soup called? Something where they have to go up on top of these cliffs for like bird drop soup or something?
It was like, it was bird's nest soup or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I remember. You were like, what? I am not going to have that.
Do you remember what it was? What it was made from?
It wasn't made from bird's nests, but there was some element that was, it's kind of like one of those like 1,000-year-old eggs, it was something like that. I can't remember exactly because I probably haven't had it since then, but yeah, it was like a delicacy. That's why. Yeah. Woojin was all about like the best.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Like everything had to be the best, the most rare. Like, I mean, I learned a lot about wine from Woojin
Yeah, I bet,
because he
yeah.
was such a like wine aficionado. But yeah, I mean, I was like once a month. I felt like we were going out to lunch with him like 3 times a week. That's why I felt like I never worked because he'd be like, he'd like roll in at 11 a.m. and be like, guys, I've got like the best place for lunch. It's over in Simi Valley or something. And
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
what? That's like, and he was like, let's go. And then like he would order drinks and we would drink at lunch. And then we would roll back in at like 3:30, 4 o'clock and then
Go home at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a it was a cool place to work. Woo was cool, man. He was eclectic, I guess I want to call him.
Yeah.
He was a cool cat though. He meant well.
He did. He
meant
drove.
well.
He drove us crazy in that, like, he was the kind of person where he'd walk in and be like, "Oh my God, I want to tell you this story," and you're like, "I can't right now. Like, I'm busy. No, I want to tell you this story. In fact, close your computer and come in this room so that I can have your full
Right.
attention."
Yeah.
And he would talk for like an hour, and like the story was always interesting, but you're like, I really have to work. But he's our boss, so we're like, well, if he wants to spend an hour telling me the story, then I guess. I remember this one time we were in the car. It was me, you, and Woojin, and we were in the car, and there was a This American Life that came on to NPR, and he was like, "Oh, this is like one of my favorite episodes," and he pulled over. He pulled over under the bridge by the office. Actually, this is when we were in Glendale.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he was like, "You guys, I want you to listen to this." And we were like, "Oh no, like we're almost back at the office." Like
we almost made it back.
Yeah, and he we sat there and listened to the episode, and he was commentating on the episode. Like, the DJ would say something, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I mean, like, listen to this, guys. Listen to this. It's so funny." And we were like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God!" But it was actually really funny.
I remember you quoting the girl saying something like she was like in a malaise or something like that.
It was about this couple that was talking about kind of, I think it was about being bored of marriage or something, and they were like, it's a general malaise and he was like, malaise isn't that the best description? And
Yeah.
I was like, but he just was like, so he had such a zest for life, like
He did.
everything excited him, everything was amazing, and that was cool. But I think sometimes we were like, I just
It was a lot. It was a
was
lot.
a lot.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
He was a good dude though. He was definitely a good dude.
yeah.
All right, so yeah, that was so I did search marketing. I actually I know I've told you guys before. I used to work at Yahoo, and when I was working at Yahoo before My Inks, I actually got recruited away from Yahoo to work at My Inks. You remember Darren?
Yeah.
Darren Oyken. I would love to have you on the show.
Hi, Darren.
Hey, Darren. Super good dude. This guy, talk about an entrepreneur. Like anyway. So I was his account manager
Okay.
at Yahoo. And I even forgot what his account was. But then he was like, hey, I have a good friend of mine who's opening a business and, he's going to be, and so he told Woo about me.
Right.
Woo started wooing me.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, I left Yahoo and it was, I had never gotten recruited for search marketing. It was kind of cool. But that was when search marketing was brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, I
that's
started
right.
working at Yahoo in '99, and
Yeah.
search marketing was totally new until Google came in and kicked the crap out of everybody.
Right.
But yeah, so working at My Inks was really cool. Tony, Joe Rudy, Dallas, Wendy, like it was
Jackie.
Yeah, it was just a nice tight knit group, but a really good group, and it was cool.
They would have made a really good sitcom.
Yes.
Just the characters.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
so many characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darren actually. So I worked with Darren at Intermix Media, which was like the MySpace group, holding group or whatever. And so I don't think he introduced me, but there was somebody else that we worked with who worked with Woojin.
Okay.
And that's how I also got like recruited in.
Yeah.
Which was probably also the first time I got recruited for a job. So
Kinda cool,
yeah, it was cool. Hey, I mean, I was making more money than I ever made at that point, and I had my own office.
Me too.
We were going to amazing restaurants for lunch. I was like, I felt like a grown up. I was like, I'm grown up.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you did before you started working in My Inks. I know that you, so you're an editor.
So I'm an editorial director now. So I was a journalist for a long time. So I started off as a music journalist, like when I was still in college, and was interviewing bands, and I was covering Britpop, which was my beat at the time. So like Oasis and Blur and all those bands.
Did you go to England? Often?
No. They were coming over on tour, so I was
Okay.
interviewing them. Radiohead was one of my bands. I interviewed them multiple times.
Okay.
Many years ago, 27, 28 years ago at this point. So I was doing music journalism, and then I kind of transitioned into reporting for LA Weekly, and I was always kind of doing that. I think I was still kind of doing reporting for when I was working at my Inc.
Yeah, I remember.
Because I always had, I could see journalism was starting to dry up a little bit. I mean, magazines were closing, wasn't a thing. So that's when I kind of always had one foot in. I started doing like, copywriting for marketing companies, that kind of stuff. And so, but I was still doing nights working for following celebrities and whatnot.
Yeah. So, so there was that one place you used to go to pretty often to kind of get the scoop on people, music. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So there were a few restaurants that celebrities always went to.
Okay.
And so the place, it's a famous hotel with a restaurant.
Okay.
And it's known for ironically, it's known for, being very private. And so celebrities can, eat there and not worry about anybody watching them. But, I have the ability to kind of be a fly on the wall, I guess. And so I started going, and I started going every week and would just kind of sit there. I mean, I wasn't a photographer. I was just a reporter. So I would just sit there and observe, and then I might go to the bathroom and take some notes in my BlackBerry, because that was the era of the BlackBerry. And then if there was something really going down, like I remember there was one celebrity whose boyfriend decided to break up with her. Probably
at the restaurant?
Yes, probably thinking that she wasn't going to make a scene, and she totally made a scene. Mm-hmm. So with something like that we would have considered breaking news, I would go in the bathroom and text my editor.
Gotcha.
That kind of stuff. So, but most of it was for what we call the color of a story. So let's say you pick up a copy of a celebrity magazine and there's a big feature on like J-Lo or something.
Okay.
And it's, several pages, and there's a lot of detail, including things like, J-Lo's favorite dish is grilled shrimp. She has it every week. Just in fact, 2 weeks ago, she was there with her agent. She was, eating this and wearing that. And like, when you look at a story like that, you never think like, where are they getting all these tiny little details? A lot of that stuff just gets filed away into the JLo file, let's say.
Okay.
So that when they do a big feature story, so it's nothing like super groundbreaking, but it's just little details so that you're getting like a bigger picture of like what this person's life is like. So a lot of what I did was like filling in the color for stories like that. Though there were plenty of other times where it was like, okay, we need to run this tomorrow we need to run it tonight online because it's like a breaking news thing.
Okay. And so you used to write for Rolling Stone also?
No, I never wrote for Rolling Stone. I wish. I
thought you wrote for Rolling Stone.
I pitched Rolling Stone numerous times as a music journalist, but could never get in there, which actually recently I connected with another journalist who we worked a lot together back in our music journalism days. And she's actually doing something similar to what I'm doing now. Okay. And she said, I have a question. Did you ever get into Rolling Stone? And I was like, no. She goes, me either. Like, I pitched them. I'm like, they weren't taking a lot of women writers back then. I was in Spin. I managed to get into Spin once, and that was like a huge. But I think that the editor at that time was the first female editor of Spin magazine. So maybe that's why I finally got in. But yeah.
Cool. What did you have a favorite place that you wrote for, or like a favorite artist or story that you? Anything? I mean,
I guess like, but as a music journalist, like Radiohead became my I became like kind of a expert on Radiohead, and it got to the point where I interviewed them so often that they would remember me when I saw them.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was cool, and we kind of built up a rapport over the years. As a reporter, there's celebrities who are super nice. I mean, I think Jennifer Garner was like one of the nicest people I'd ever met. I definitely have some, fun stories with other people, but you're just always like, you're not really focused on like one person. So, but yeah.
Now, was that your full-time, when you were doing it, was it a full-time job?
I was a full-time freelance journalist before I joined My Inks.
Okay.
So I was writing for like 10 different publications and managing it all, like from home.
Got it.
So I was doing like red carpet interviews for people doing them. I beat it. I was writing for Jonathan Gold, doing some food stuff for LA Weekly. I was writing for the LA Times, doing like interviews with actors and film coverage and stuff like that. But that's kind of what, at the time, like there was no such thing as a staff job anymore at a magazine.
Okay.
When I was coming up, that was my dream. I was like, I want to be like managing editor at Rolling Stone. But, then, and especially now, there's maybe 3 full-time people at a magazine and everybody else is freelance. So those like salaried benefits, that doesn't exist in journalism. And I could see the writing on the wall back then. And that's why I was like starting to slowly transition into marketing and social media copy and all that kind of stuff, because I could just see that, it wasn't going to last.
Did you like doing copywriting for social media?
I did. I didn't, to be perfectly honest, like My Inks wouldn't have been like my favorite work.
Ink is not
writing about
sexy.
inkjet cartridges. But I really, I moved on to Kellogg's in Europe, was their social media, like head of social media for Kellogg's European headquarters. And I loved that, especially because, that's like a brand that you grew up with, right? So it's like, and I love food. So that was like
she's a foodie.
That was like a great fit. I really loved that job.
Okay.
And I really love like I'm an editorial director at a communications agency now. I do a lot of writing and editorial strategy, I guess more like messaging strategy for Microsoft and Xbox and LinkedIn, and I love that. I love that kind of work.
So do you manage people, or do you actually still?
I manage people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like managing people better, or actually doing the work?
I do both.
Oh.
I mean, like I think part of the kind of role of any editorial function. I mean, I can't imagine like not doing the work.
Yeah.
You can't not do the work. It's not the kind of role where you're like, you
just
do
a
this
delegator.
and like I'll just kind of like sit back. It's not like that. So I do more strategic work now than like down in the like weeds, like specific like copywriting. But I still do write a lot. So it's usually in the form of like decks, like messaging frameworks and things like that.
Okay. Well, cool.
I feel lucky. I feel lucky that I can still get paid for editorial work.
Doing what you love.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's good. So Claire, she was one of the first people who I met who was really, really into food, and in like I guess a foodie way. I guess I say the word foodie, where you were just very particular about certain types of foods or certain places. And so the quick example I can give you is one time I forgot why we were talking about eggs. But I was telling her, I just throw some scrambled eggs. I do it. And she was like, "No, you have to, you have to slow cook them." And she starts just giving me this whole thing. And I was like,
"You're probably like, don't be such a snob."
In my mind, I'm thinking it's scrambled eggs, but it's more than that. And so I learned about you that like food is just very important to you, and not in just the sense of eating, but like just that you love different types of foods. And so tell me a little bit about.
I mean, I don't even know where it's. I think that one of my earliest chores as a kid for both my sister and I was that we had to make one meal, like one dinner a week. So probably even when we were maybe 9 years old. And we had like a Better Homes and Gardens like kids cookbook. By cookbook, I mean it's like grilled cheese and like a super salad and like that kind of stuff. But the key to doing a whole meal as a kid, it's all about like, well, can the grilled cheese and the salad and the tomato soup be ready at the same time? Because you have to serve that as a meal, right? So that was kind of like what my parents emphasized, was like, it's not just about being able to make something, it's about being able to like set the table and like present it well and have it all ready at the same time. So we really like latched on to that. We loved it. And we really got into like baking and, like Betty Crocker, cakes and stuff, and then moved on to like baking pies and all that kind of stuff. And then, I don't know, like I just really, it's a creative outlet for me, like I love cooking. following a lot of chefs. I mean, this is before like social media really, right?
Yeah.
So I was like following a lot of chefs on Food Network, and
I think that I know my wife was watching it, but you started telling me about different people on there. I know Bobby Flay, but there was another guy. I want to say his name was maybe like Tyler something.
oh, Tyler Florence. God, I haven't thought about that guy in a long time. Yeah. I mean, I know he's still doing well. Like I know I don't think he's on Food Network, but he has a bunch of restaurants and stuff. But I don't know, I just was really interested in food and the chef world and all that stuff. My sister too. And so, I think that was what I think Woojin and I definitely, bonded on that because he was really interested in all that kind of stuff too. But, and then, when I was doing entertainment reporting, I finally transitioned into food and travel journalism because that was always the dream, like putting my two loves together kind of thing. And then I was like interviewing chefs and that was really exciting. And
now, didn't you have a food blog at one point?
I did have a food blog when I was working with you. I think I started it.
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of like the beginning of the food blogging thing in LA. There was I feel like there were like 50 of us back then, and we all knew each other. And it's funny because a lot of those people now are like professional food photographers, or they've opened restaurants, or they're like working, in the food business as professionals. Okay. Not everybody, but a good number.
We worked together for the entire year of 07.
07, yeah. We were all on Blogspot back then. WordPress wasn't a thing.
That's right.
And you didn't post about it on social media because I don't know, when did Facebook start? I can't remember. I'm sure Facebook was probably around back then, but
I know I've seen people who've been on Facebook for like 12, 13 years.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that means anything.
I've been on there for a long time, but yeah, I mean, I don't even know how many readers I had, but I would like cook something and post a recipe and post pictures and all that kind of stuff. And I still love cooking. Before I came here, I spent all morning like cooking something because we're having people for dinner tonight.
Okay.
And I'm off work today, but that was a great way to spend the day, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. There's something great about like feeding people, like making people happy with food. I don't know. I've just always loved it.
That's cool. You opened my eyes to. I'm so the opposite. I'm just like, what's to eat? Let's eat. Like I'm the exact
chili
opposite.
Spaghetti.
Bob's Big Boy chili and spaghetti.
I still haven't tried it. We have to go, and if there's even a Bob's Big Boy,
Burbank.
Oh my God, we have to go. I think we're gonna have to go.
So you gotta have chili spaghetti, and then you gotta chase it with a hot fudge cake.
What?
Oh yeah. You got. If I go to Bob's, I'm going big. I literally grew up on eating chili and spaghetti with a hot fudge cake.
Are there beans in the chili?
No.
Okay,
that's why it's so
makes
good.
sense. And is there like raw onions on top?
Yep, chopped.
And cheese?
Yep.
Isn't that like? I feel like there's a city on the East Coast that's like known for chili spaghetti.
Someone told me about that. I forgot the name of the place, but when I said that, they said kind of what you just said.
I feel like I know somebody who was like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love chili. I love spaghetti.
It's good.
I love onions and cheese. So. Yeah,
and I probably talk about it.
You used to talk about it a lot.
So it may be kind of underwhelming when you try it, but like I love it.
I'm sure it'll be good.
I love it.
We'll get Jackie and go to lunch at Bob's.
That'd be cool. So there was a point where you had moved to Europe, right?
Yeah.
But did it start off with your blog, with your food blog?
No. So at the time I was freelancing for a food and travel magazine. And so I was starting to travel a lot. So I would like go to New Zealand and spend 2 weeks in New Zealand learning all about the, food in New Zealand, and then, come back and do a story for this magazine. And I think at the time, every time I would go somewhere, I would think, could I live here? Because I never had the opportunity to live abroad in college or anything like that. And I just was at a point in my life, and I was in my 30s, so a little bit older than most people, like deciding to live abroad. But I don't know, I just was starting to look into it. I actually looked into New Zealand so far that I actually like was talking with, the visa people about how to obtain a visa and all this other stuff. But I was like, it's just too far. New Zealand is just too far.
Is it literally like on the other side?
On the other side. It's like an 18-hour flight from Los Angeles. So then I was in Dublin, Ireland for a story. I was doing a story on this pastry chef at this fancy hotel in Dublin. And I had a bunch of friends, Irish friends, because when I went to college in San Francisco, I rented a room in a grungy old house with a bunch of Irish couples that had come over, overstayed their tourist visa, and just like worked for cash under the table. You could do that back then.
Okay.
Well,
Nice.
you had to stay in the country until you decided to go, and then you couldn't come back in. And they all lived in this area, probably about 45 minutes outside of Dublin. They were like in the country. I
Okay.
mean, like they were like in the sticks. And so I extended my trip, visited with them, had a really great time. And when I got back to LA, I was like, okay, it's Ireland. I've got friends there. It's an English-speaking country because I'm trying to be a writer, I'm a journalist, so I can't really live in France. And so I just applied they had like a writers and artists visa, which is really more for like screenwriters and authors. But I was like, I'm going to apply anyway. And you have to prove that you're well known in your field, which, that's so subjective. But I just threw everything I had at this, like every celebrity I ever interviewed, every whatever. And they actually rejected me because they were like, we don't feel like you've met the standard of like being well known enough, but you can appeal if you have anything else that could show us that you're well known. And at the time I was writing for Jonathan Gold at LA Weekly.
Okay.
And he had just won a Pulitzer Prize for food writing. He was the first person to ever win a Pulitzer for food writing. And so I was telling him that I got rejected, and he was like, well, I'll write a letter on your behalf, and I'm gonna throw my Pulitzer in there and see what they say about that. And then they took me. Like, he wrote the letter and they said, okay.
All right.
And so I moved to Ireland with a year's writer's visa. Well, actually, by the time I got there, it was 10 months because it took me 2 months to close my life up. And I was going to stay.
Well, that's a big move.
It was a huge move. I sold my car, put all my stuff in storage. I was renting, so I didn't have to sell anything. Moved in with my friends for 2 weeks. They helped me find an apartment. I was just still writing for my clients, here in the States, and started to write for some publications in Ireland. And then a few months into it, I met Cormac, this guy, who's my husband now. Newsflash, he's my husband now. We didn't get married within 10 months, but I found out that I could renew my visa. As long as I was working, I could renew my visa. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I really transitioned out of journalism, and I started working for a digital creative agency in social media copywriting. Okay. I actually was the social media voice for Guinness and Kerrygold.
Guinness, the beer?
Yes.
Okay.
The two most Irish brands that you've ever heard of. I was
Aren't those super thick?
Well, it's the stout. It's the dark. Yeah, they're actually really low in alcohol, though. It's not going to get you drunk. It just looks heavy, but it's 4%. So I kind of a lot of big changes. It's I decided to stay in Ireland. I totally changed careers. Into marketing, social media, digital marketing, and then a couple of years later we got married, and I ended up staying in Ireland for almost 7 years.
Yeah, you were there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we moved in 2016, moved back to the States.
Has it been that long?
Well, we moved to Portland for a couple of years, then we moved back to LA.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm glad I did it, but I remember at the time thinking who does this when they're 35? Nobody. But
you're in the position to do it though.
Yeah, I was a little crafty with some of the paperwork. They were like, crafty. Oh, you have to have this much money in the bank. I was using an X-Acto knife and a lot of different numbers. I was just I have to get there. You know what I mean? I had to get there. And I was I don't know. I don't think they have such sophisticated systems that they're going to be able to check all this stuff. I mean, I didn't go crazy with the fibs, but I just was really, once I decided to do it, I'm I have to get there.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. That's cool. I remember when you were telling me that you were going to go, and I was like, all right. I mean, it's to me, I love it that you were just kind of just free enough to be hey, I'm going to just up and move my life, and it's a big move. Not a lot of people are willing to take that on.
I didn't have anything. I mean, like my family lived here and we have a great relationship, but they've always been, I'm originally from Japan. My mother is Japanese. She moved over here, after she married my dad. So my parents were not like, oh, you can't do that. That's crazy. They were like, you should. I was just so fed up with LA too. I was fed up with dating in LA. That was like one of the big things. And I just was like, if I have to go on another date with another LA douchey guy, I'm going to lose my mind. And I just thought, well, if I change the biggest circumstance in my life, which is like the country that I live in, then by its very nature, everything else will change. And everything else did change. It's like I met my now husband. I totally established myself in digital marketing, which was still kind of a little bit, newish at the time. Social media marketing was totally new at the time. So like I have absolutely no regrets at all, and also when you live in Ireland, you can like fly to Paris for the weekend because it's a 2-hour flight. I got to travel all over Europe for, little trips, and it was definitely best decision I ever made.
I bet. I've never been to Europe, but from what I understand, like the countries are like states out here. So like you can, you can go to 5-6 different places within a couple of hours of each other.
Yeah, I mean, you can take the train from London to Paris in 2.5 hours. Yeah. I mean, it goes under the water, but still, I mean, that's why like Europeans come over here and they're like, America is so big. And it is. And like, if somebody says, well, what's America like? You're like, there's not one thing that America is like, because, New Yorkers are totally different from like LA people and
that's true,
and all the rest. And so, you realize how vast the U.S. is once you live. I mean, I think Ireland as a country, hopefully I won't get this wrong, I think that it has like 6 million people, in the country of Ireland.
Oh, wow.
When they say that everybody knows everyone else in Ireland, they're not kidding. Like they'll be like, oh, you'll be talking to someone like, oh, my cousin Sharon, lives over here. Oh, I know Sharon. It's like how.
And they really know her.
And they really know her. Yeah. It's really, that is. Yeah. Can be a blessing or a curse depending.
True. So yeah, that was very cool. Very cool. So one more thing I want to talk about real fast. So you joined one of my challenges.
Oh yeah.
I guess it was a couple years ago. So I used to work out when we used to work together. And you knew I would go to the gym at lunchtime or whatever. And so it was really interesting when you decided to join one of my transformation challenges, and you had asked me a lot of questions that no one else.
Oh, really?
was asking me, and
I'm a journalist.
Well, exactly. And so, but it really kind of opened my eyes to different types of people and different types of not just requests but needs. And so it was good for me because number one, I knew that you were asking genuine questions, and had genuine concerns, where in my mind I'm just thinking like, oh, like, well, just do this, or it's just this way, but it's not the case, Yeah. So I learned a lot from our conversations about the challenge, which was pretty cool. What do you remember which number challenge it was?
No. I feel like there had only been maybe a handful before though, because there weren't that many examples. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas now I think you kind of like show what other people and other challenges have done. But I don't remember seeing a ton of stuff. I remember being blown away by the progress that a lot of people were making though, and being like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. People were like, yeah, I mean, it was incredible, the transformations, like in a very short period of time. But I mean, there's a prize at the end of it, right? Everybody pulls their money in. Yeah, I mean, it's serious. People get really competitive.
Yeah, so when it comes to fitness, I think that money drives anything in any category. You know what I mean? If there's a prize to win, people will go hard.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that the money was a part of. So I might be able to win this money, but man, like I feel so much better by doing, I'm doing so much more than I thought that I could.
Right.
And so like the challenges that I do they're typically 6 weeks. I've done an 8-week challenge. This next one in January is going to be I'm not exactly sure how many weeks it's going to be yet, but it's going to be good though. I have some good plans
Well,
for
the
it.
January one's going to be packed.
Yeah, I hope.
I'm sure
I'm
it will
hoping.
be.
I'm hoping. But you know, like it really is that like when someone decides, okay, this is what I'm doing, it just and they kind of change their habits, their daily habits, is when you see those drastic changes. And some people go overboard. You know, some people are borderline. You know, like they're not eating nearly enough, or they're
Right.
working out too much, or you know. But that is life. Some people are more
Right.
extreme than others. But at the end of the day, in 6 weeks, if you're able to lose, you know, a good amount of weight, and that could be 5 pounds, could be 15, 20 pounds, depending
Yeah.
on how much you have to lose. But I think it's the thing that I love about it most is how people feel about themselves
Yeah.
when they're done, and you really kind of feel like they've accomplished something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the starter for, you know, really kind of getting into it for the rest of your life too. So.
Well, we need to talk because, I should probably sign up for the next challenge.
Okay. All right. So this has been great.
Yeah,
You know,
this is fun.
I used to see you every day at work, and then we didn't see each other for a long
know.
time. And it was. I'm glad that you accepted when I asked if you wanted to come on. So I appreciate you being on.
It was super fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys. Clare Kleinedler, she's done a lot of stuff. She's, you know, like went overseas, written for some serious magazines. Just really nice lady.
Lady.
Really nice lady,
Sounds
woman.
old.
Really nice woman. Well, I don't want to call you. I don't want to call you a girl.
I know, it's okay.
Yeah.
I am a girl.
She's a really good friend of mine, and this has been a great time. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. I will see you in the next show.